Todd will break, well, should break the all-time AFL hitouts record. What does that say about his career as a ruckman?
Well, his longevity's unbelievable, isn't it? Really, he's had a fantastic year so far. His last probably month, I think he's really escalated his game for us. And his ability to be, I guess, that consistent over a long period of time. It's probably the definition of champions. By the time they get to their end of their career, and I think we'll look back with a high lot of respect for what he's done for our club.
And to break it, he'll need to sort of get a hold of Nick Nat at some point. What kind of challenge is that for him?
Yeah, well, Nick Nat's a challenge at any point in time when you come up against him. His power and his jump, his capacity to sort of get that reach over the top. So Goldie's got to do his work. He's been planning as he does most weeks against that. So we've got to try to nullify that dominance. And it's a great opportunity for Todd, but it's not our only focus. Our focus is our work that our midfield's got to do. The work that they've got to put in. Depending on conditions, the game might shift around a little bit, but our midfield's been going pretty reasonable so far.
You played against Todd a lot in your time at other clubs. Now that you get here, what's the things that stand out to you that you didn't necessarily recognise as an opposition person?
Yeah, look, I think his versatility. He's very versatile in the way that he can ruck, his ground level balls. We've pushed him forward this year, from time to time. So, yeah, he's got a wide range of skills, as a ruckman, and we're trying to exploit that as best as we can.
Expected to be biblical sort of weather tomorrow night, which will help him to get a few hitouts. How do you plan for what is looking like torrential rain and storms for the entire day and night?
Yeah, well, we've got our team meeting tonight, so we'll make some mention of it tonight and wait and see what it turns into tomorrow. I mean, there are times like when you play on grounds at this level and this calibre, they do drain really well. Brisbane have played at Adelaide Oval, we've been at, where if you have those breaks through those periods of time, the water can actually move away quite quickly. So that's obviously the drainage capacity of these sorts of grounds. So whilst it might have periods where it's a bit heavy, there might be other periods where you're actually able to use the ball in some way, shape or form.
What have you made of West Coast over the last couple of weeks? You talk about how your whole midfield's going to have to work together. Is there a vulnerability there at the moment for the Eagles?
Probably not for me to say, publicly. Obviously we plan around what we try to do from a perspective internally. They've got a long history of a really strong game plan. I think in some of those periods, against the Bombers over here, a few weeks ago, their game plan stood up really well. Richmond stood up really well. So I don't think the last couple of weeks are real. I mean, they sit 7th for a reason, or 8th for a reason. So, I'm sure they've got lots of experience. Their game plan's solid. I'm sure Simo's been going to work with the players this week just to tinker and tweak a few things. So we're expecting that they're going to come out ready to play.
Your contested game's been really strong, especially the past couple of weeks. With those conditions that we are expecting, do you think that will give you an advantage in those circumstances? Yeah,
well, I think it comes down to your capacity to do something reasonably basic with the ball. I think in the end, doesn't it? Those the wet weather games are that's sort of what it lends itself to. It'll be a bit more of a contested night than at other points in time. But yeah, we've worked hard on a contested ball. The shape of how that looks and then how that leans into your offence and your defence. So that's been an important part. So, now we'll just have to wait and see what the weather brings tomorrow, I guess, and just adapt as we go.
Have stability with selection. It's always important. What does that do for you to not have to make changes?
Yeah, it's really good. We've started to get a few back now from sort of long-term injuries. We had Jed Anderson and Jared Polak running around today, again, sort of in their second and third week, so that's been really good. The form line of the team last week, overall was really good. So that gives us that sense that we can pick with some consistency, and I think that allows particularly young guys to sort of get that groove of settling in and, not fearing that selections, thereabouts. For that sort of mid-tier, those experienced guys, I think what it allows us to do is that they need to play well to get back in the team. So that internal pressure from selection is always really helpful.
Are you starting to see sort of a sustained improvement in form? Like you guys have been competitive for several weeks in a row now, so are you starting to see that you're building towards something?
Yeah, we think we're trending that way. We've played some pretty reasonable, groups, and even in the early part of the year. I mean, you learn so much when you play, top level teams. So we're anticipating to try to put our best on show tomorrow and learn again from playing the Eagles. But yeah, we think we're starting to get more consistent understanding of what our game plan looks like, and therefore our ability to execute that seems to be more bankable than what it's been in probably in the early part of the year at least.
You mentioned West Coast ladder position. They've been playing like a seventh place team the past 2 weeks. So do you go into the game thinking there's an edge here which we can take on, or worried about the edge that they're going to be trying to bring from being angry at their own performance?
Yeah, that's probably a bit of both, really, isn't there? There's an expectation that you would think as a proud club they're certainly going to come out and want to try and take control of the game early. We think we've been pretty reasonable in that stakes. Jumping out of the blocks reasonably well after the last few weeks. So, and then it might just end up being there's periods of times where it becomes a bit of an arm wrestle. So. You're always trying to pitch where you can apply your strengths in the game, and so we've tried to do that, and then how that unfolds tomorrow night, we'll wait and see.
Craig talked about your strengths as contested possessions. What are the strengths of the West Coast that you need to nullify?
Oh, they're an experienced campaign. Their ability to manage the ball, and you've got a dangerous forward line. You've got a midfield group that can get hold of you pretty quick. So. How many more do you want me to reel off? They're an experienced campaign group. Played finals consistently. Their average age in games is right in the right window. So, yeah, we just have to be conscious that if they pull it all together, then it becomes a pretty dangerous game.
Who gets the job on Josh Kennedy? And I mean, the three talls of West Coast, of course, came some problems. So how do you go about that?
Well, we've got three talls. So between Ben, Josh, and Robbie, there might be periods of time where each of them has a stint, depending on what their forward structure looks like, depending on how we want to line our defenders up. So there's probably no one that we'll probably line up just initially. We'll see where they start, and then where they sort of start to move up the ground, and we'll assess it from there.
It's been a long time since you played in front of a crowd with no restrictions. There'll be more people here tomorrow night than there have been for the last 5 weeks combined for you guys. What's it going to be like? Well,
it's interesting you say that. We've got a strong connection with WA. Our club's got a long history with Western Australian players. And, to all our WA fans that we couldn't get to the game last time when we played Freo over here on Anzac Day, we hope they come, and jump on board and come and support. We know we won't have much, but, if they want to come, it'll be fantastic to see them over here. As I said, I've got a great connection with the WA members and fans for North Melbourne over here.